Hello, and welcome to Just Therapist Things, where we talk all things therapy. My name is Jordan, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist from California. I am a private practice owner of Vital Mind Therapy, where I see clients virtually and in person. I also lead support groups for a nonprofit cancer support organization. Thanks for listening. Hello, everyone. On today's episode, I have a wonderful guest with me to discuss the necessity of inclusive mental health practices and how to uphold these values in your practice. Maureen Codispodi, registered clinical counselor from British Columbia, Canada, is here with me. Hi, Maureen. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Jordan. It's great to be here with you.
So, Maureen, you can tell us a little bit more about this in a moment, but you have your own practice and you are also the founder of Help Clinic Canada, which provides low-fee, accessible counseling to people across Canada. So, do you mind just sharing a little bit more about that and about your past?
Yeah, absolutely. Help Clinic Canada, I think we were talking about this just a little bit before we started on air, it's been sort of a growing project over many years inside my head. And about a year ago, I started actually building Help Clinic Canada. And, I've had quite an amazing adventurous life, and I kind of professionally and personally feel like I'm home, right? Like I've had this long journey, and I feel like creating this company has been, it's a way to take everything that I've learned in my life and in education and put it into practice. And so, some people are surprised of what I've done in a year, and some people that know me well are not surprised because, when I put my mind to something, it happens. And the idea of this company that I've built was born on a cross Canada cycling trip that I did in 2009. I cycled solo across Canada to raise money for breast cancer. And, I've been fortunate to travel Canada quite extensively in many ways, but by bike certainly allowed me to kind of get into like the nitty gritty of Canadian culture and to small communities. And because of the fundraising efforts, many people opened up to me on that trip, and I met these amazing humans, many men who shared, their pain, their grief with me and their journeys. And, along that journey, I realized that, there's so many remote and small communities across Canada, and there's just so much complexity and difference in the cultural landscape of the country itself. And so, I always had this, this moment in my mind of these memories that I had of all these people sharing. And then, as a professional, I've been really fortunate to live and work overseas for most of 20 years. And during those years, I worked with people from all over the world. And, I also realized the necessity for remote support in those years. So even getting support for my own mental health or the people around me, trying to find good fits in the countries that I was in wasn't always possible. And this was, pre there being Zoom or anything else, right? And so all of these things collectively came together for me to create Help Clinic Canada. And so we're an online mental health platform, which provides low fee and full fee virtual therapy across the country. So we have qualified therapists across the country. So no matter if you're in a remote region, no matter where you are in Canada, you can access the support. And so that has been the main motivator for me, and reducing the barriers of access. Like for me personally, I live in a remote area. I have extended health benefits, but I have nowhere to use them.
Mm.
And so I know there's many other people in this situation. And so, while people that live in cities may use our services, it also appeals to those other people, and it, reduces the time of travel, the cost of travel. And we've also set our rates really low, and we want to make sure that most of that money goes back into the hands of the clinicians. And then in the fall, in a couple weeks, we're launching our low fee counseling with practicum students from amazing universities across Canada. And so we're aiming to create a really safe and supportive learning environment for those students while offering low fee counseling options to anyone. And so
Mhm.
it's a very simple process, and people can apply for the low fee counseling if they don't have extended health benefits or enough money to pay for therapy out of pocket. So, it's really exciting. We've only launched about 2.5 months ago, so May 6th, in line with Mental Health Week in Canada. But we're slow and steady, and just building this company. Wow, there's so many pieces of business I don't understand and I don't know. I've had to learn, or I've had to outsource. I just keep coming back to like the mission and the vision and the why for me, and it doesn't feel so hard then, even though so it's a lot of tasks. Yeah.
Wow, wow. Well, you are just incredible, and the work that you do is incredible. And I feel honored that you found me. I do want to hear how you found Just Therapist
Yeah.
Things, because you are absolutely incredible and so so impressive. And actually, something that I did not know that you just mentioned about your bike trip, I didn't know this before you just said it, was that it was for breast cancer awareness. And that's something that I don't know if you knew about me from my social media, but I do have breast cancer in my family, and I do a lot of work with people affected by cancer and mental health support. So that is just so
Oh,
beautiful
wow.
to hear as well.
That's what I did. I really didn't know that about you, Jordan. And I
Yeah.
found your podcast. I work part-time as a school counselor in a remote area. And so I actually take a boat to work. And when I'm on the boat,
Wow.
I listen to podcasts. And so this last year, it's been a mission of mine to find, private practice podcasts or podcasts about psychology. And so that's how I found you, just searching up different podcasts and people
Mhm.
online, and I found you that way. And I really didn't know about the cancer connection.
Yeah.
I didn't have cancer myself. My mother and my godmother did, and that was why
Mhm.
I did the fundraising. My mother is a survivor of breast cancer, but my
Mhm.
aunt and godmother sadly passed away, and so that was
Um,
the main motivator at
mhm.
the time for the fundraising. And it was
Mhm.
pre GoFundMe, but
Mhm.
we still made a pretty good impact, and just me on my bike and
Yeah.
a remote social media manager at the time. It was a very different social media landscape then, but
Mhm.
we accomplished big things, and I think the awareness piece was the biggest takeaway, regardless of the funds raised. It
Mhm.
just created a space for conversations, and that's that piece that has that line that's come into what I've created today. It's like
Mhm.
just making it safe for people to talk about the things that are on their mind,
Mhm.
and relating to people about their experience. I think that men often find it hard to share their mental health
Mhm.
struggles, or their struggles in life. And I
Mhm.
met a lot of spouses of breast cancer survivors, and also
Mhm.
spouses of people that lost their battle to breast cancer. So yeah, it's been a full circle for sure. So I'm glad to
Mhm.
hear that you also advocate for breast cancer and cancer.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, you said you lived abroad for 20 years, and I mean, across Canada, you've really noticed these different cultures and have met so many different people. And so I can imagine that those experiences of just meeting such a diverse group of people really, I mean, it sounds like that is what fostered this amazing help clinic. But how do you in help clinic, how do you continue to reach those diverse populations? How do you reach people across Canada in rural areas, in the city? Just how do you do it?
Yeah. Well, we're doing it. It's I think it's more of a verb at the moment. It's not like it's not finished. It's never
Hmm.
completed, but it's a journey for sure. We in our recruitment of our independent contractors, we were really open to those that were applying, and not just looking at sort of education or professional experience, but we were also looking at like lived and life experience. So if you look on our website, you'll see that there's visible diversity on our team, but there's also
Hmm.
invisible diversity, and there's amazing amount of self-identified variance on our team. And
Hmm.
mainly, I always looked at what people brought to the table. So it's not necessarily about age or experience. It depends on so many things. And to be honest, team that I have is absolutely amazing. They all bring such
Mm-hmm.
wealth of knowledge and experience. But what I know now, being in this journey for a few months with my team, is that what brought them to me is their belief in and alignment with our mission, vision, and values. So
Mm-hmm.
while I have a master's in counseling psychology, I have worked in social work type roles for many years, like in and out of education and different places. And so the principles of social work and our company mission and vision align really well. And so the diversity of our team, you'll see that there's people who are psychotherapists, there's people that are registered social workers, there's
Mm-hmm.
all types of background, and people that stick with us and want to be with us and are with us in this growth period as we launch, as we get the word out about what we're doing. They're with me on this journey because they believe in what I'm doing. And
Mm-hmm.
we strive to create diversity in our team so that we can accurately represent Canada. And Canada is
Mm-hmm.
such a diverse place. It's not just one type of people. And while, I am a white woman and
Mm-hmm.
I essentially come from privilege, my journey, to this place in my life hasn't been a straight road. And there's been lots of ups and downs. And I think that's why I really do value that lived experience piece, because I think it really
Mm-hmm.
brings a lot to the therapeutic relationship with clients and just helps to create places where people feel safe, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
piece about the low fee counseling is that there's so much discrepancy in cost of therapy and access to therapy, because if you don't have extended health benefits through a job or otherwise, then you have to pay out of pocket, and those expenses are enormous for some people and just not possible. And often the people that need support are those people that don't have secure employment or need other things, or are entrepreneurs and don't have extended health benefits. And so, by creating this low fee, we're really reducing those barriers for people. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
super passionate about that aspect of our company because we do operate as a social enterprise. And so, all of those things are, intertwined. It can't separate like my team and the multicultural aspect and the way that we're structured, the finances, the cost of the therapy, the low fee, all of those things are
Mm-hmm.
all intertwined to create this like safe, supportive, ethical practice.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to build a team that can support Canadians no matter where they are and no matter where they come from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. I'm curious too, because I am a white woman therapist as well, who is coming from privilege. And I definitely acknowledge that about myself, especially when working with people who have different backgrounds and different cultures and things like that. So I'm curious, in you building Help Clinic, were you, how did that affect you being a white woman uh, from a privileged background with being the founder of
Yeah.
the help group?
One of the things that I did initially, we hired a Indigenous liaison. So
Hmm.
that was one of the pieces, and she helped me structure our land acknowledgements. She built a program for cultural sensitivity for our clinicians, which applies not only to Indigenous people but all people. And that was one piece. So I kind of said, okay, I know what I don't know, and I
Hmm.
and I was able to take people on. I also, as I had conversations with possible independent contractors, like
Hmm.
I asked for their opinions, I asked their thoughts, I asked how they think we should grow.
Hmm.
I would like to think that I have a very open policy of communication. Like, I'm not a
Hmm.
closed door person, and I always look for feedback, whether it's from my team or from my clients. And I think, just as in like the therapeutic relationship, you know, I'm open to what's in
Hmm.
front of me. I really truly do respect my team. I want them to have autonomy and agency over so many
Hmm.
aspects of what they're doing. And I think just creating that safe space that allows for difference, that allows for the unknowns, and being able to say when I don't know something.
Hmm.
I'm quite comfortable with that. I think that it's taken years of living and working in different cultures with different people from different cultures. So not only
Hmm.
was I like, say, living in Bangkok, but I was also working with people from around the world, right? And my students were from around the world. And so
Mhm.
understanding like the nuances of cultural difference and knowing when to like sit back and knowing when to ask and knowing when to say like I don't know. And in my private practice, I often work with people who, are immigrants or come from multicultural
Mhm.
backgrounds or, have variance. And that's definitely an area of specialty to me. And I often have to say, yes, I know I'm a white woman, and
Mhm.
that gives me privilege in some ways, and but these are the things that I know, these are the things that I've learned, and I'm very open to saying when I don't know, but I also am very careful about not putting that on my clients. So if there
Right.
is something that I don't know, then I may say it if it's appropriate, but I usually will go back and do some research and find out
Mhm.
information and ask for
Mhm.
support, whether it's in the therapeutic community or outside of that, to better understand cultural nuances. But I think that I have this ability now to kind of really know when I don't know and be willing to say it and understand the subtle differences of like how collectivist cultures affect the individual's experience
Mhm.
and otherwise, and just subtle things like that. But I don't think that that's something that can be like, okay, I read it in a book, I read it once, I
Mhm.
learned it, it's done. This is like
Mhm.
ongoing. And even me, having this experience for so many years, I know there is so much more to learn. And I think it's great because the gift that it's given me is this drive and realization that it's never going to end, this learning journey, and I'm never
Yeah.
going to get it all right, and that's okay. Like
Mhm.
I'm flawed, I'm a human being, and that's okay. And I think just showing up vulnerably for clients and for my team and just
Mhm.
being who I am. And I can't change that I'm white, but I can change how I respond to the people that are in front of me, and I can
Mhm.
listen and use all my therapeutic skills, but also just me as a human, right? Being compassionate and
Mhm.
caring about others, I think is kind of pivotal to all those relationships.
Completely. Yeah. And what you just described is having wonderful cultural humility and cultural competence, which I feel like, as you said, as professionals, as therapists, we're all taught that in grad school, right? But as you said, it's one thing to read it in a textbook, and it's another thing to actually be an inclusive, culturally competent mental health professional. And from what I'm hearing from you, what you just said, that the way to do so is to be curious, to be
Mhm,
open, to be
mhm,
respectful, and to realize that this is a lifelong journey of learning and to kind of find that balance. And I feel like that's something that I will fully admit I continue to struggle with, because when I'm curious, as you said, I don't want to put it on the other person to educate me. Right. Because as
mhm.
therapists, we need to do the work. So that's kind of a fine balance, too, of allowing clients or allowing other colleagues to share with us, but not educate us, because we need to do the work ourselves.
100%. Yep, you said it so well. I can't agree with you more. I mean, yeah, it's not just a one and done. It's never just a one and done. And you know, reading it in a book in theory is definitely one thing, but in practice it's always different. And like the unique intersectionality of every human, including me, and the interplay of those two things are so there's so many possibilities. So it's impossible to know everything. It's impossible to know how the interplay of the relationship is going to affect things. It's also impossible to know all the nuances of who you are as a human being. Well, outwardly, I'm a white woman. There's a lot of things, like I said, in my journey that people don't know, right?
Mhm.
Those are all my things. So I assume that everybody else has their own stuff going on, and it's not just written with a label and say, okay, well, I must know about that human, because it's not
Mhm.
it's not absolutely possible to know everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said,
Mhm.
Jordan.
Right, right. Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you so much for just talking about this. I feel like it's so, so important to talk about it. And we didn't say directly what inclusive mental health practices, what that definition is to our listeners. Everything that we're talking about here is being an inclusive mental health practitioner. As you know as well, just from being a counselor, we this is not the profession if you want to make a lot of money, right? This is not a good profession to do so. We're therapists and counselors because we want to help people, number one, and be there to support people. So I am curious, with Help Clinic, you offer low fee counseling.
Mhm.
How does that sustain the therapists that are working with
Yeah,
you?
100%. Great question. So we do have two arms of the company. So one is our full fee counseling services. So that would be people using extended health benefits
Hmm.
or paying out of pocket if they can afford it for fully licensed counselors and therapists across Canada. So they would use their extended health benefits to pay those, and then the contractors take home an 80% split, which is quite high in this industry. But
Hmm.
we wanted to make sure that we're putting most of the money back into the hands of the therapist and creating a living wage that's sustainable for them, so they're not having to take on too many clients. And
Hmm.
then our low fee is mostly run with practicum students from in their
Hmm.
masters in their final year of their masters, so that a lot of them actually come skilled and are
Hmm.
working professionals already. So we have this amazing team of students ready to take on all of these low fee clients. And the fee is $25 per session, and so that all of
Hmm.
that money goes to pay our, independent contractors who are their supervisors,
Hmm.
and then pay for advertising and that sort of thing. So we try to minimize that cost, but really, as I said, we're kind of a social enterprise. So, we do want to make a profit eventually, and we are in the beginning
Hmm.
phases. And I currently don't take a salary, and that's okay because this is
Hmm.
a labor of love, and I know that we'll
Hmm.
grow and we'll build over time. But I think, there's a balance. I love working for them, but right now, most of the money I make from them goes right back into my company, and that's
Right.
okay. And then the only other piece of that is that we asked every independent contractor to take on at least one low fee client. So
Hmm.
ideally what will happen is that if we have more complex cases or cases that are not suitable to students, then we would ask one of our licensed therapists to take them on. And
Hmm.
then we would still charge the client $25, but as a company, we would take sort of like from that pool of money from the low fee to supplement the income for the therapist. So they've all agreed to take on those low fee clients, and they still
Hmm.
it's a reduced rate that they're getting, but I think it balances everything out, and it creates a space where people are able to help, because most therapists do take on some sliding scale, some low fee
Hmm.
clients.
Hmm.
And so we just created a space for them to be able to do so and try to balance all the caseloads. And, and the bottom line is that, really we want to find good matches for our clients, whether they're low fee or full fee. And we also know that as a company, we're not going to make a ton of money, but we would like to be a sustainable business. And so, it's
Hmm.
just a matter of getting people through the door, creating these spaces where people come back to. And I think that ultimately the goal is, to keep growing, taking on more therapists, and that, so
Hmm.
that we can be a more sustainable business. Right now, we're at the beginning, and many of these things are in the idea stages and in the preliminary stages, but we know it's
Hmm.
working and we are growing. So,
Right.
I think it creates a win for everybody.
Yeah. It sounds like you've developed such a great model, and it's honestly really inspiring because I feel like, unfortunately, just because the state of our worlds and that, life is very expensive, then I think that unfortunately deters a lot of therapists and other mental health professionals from taking low fee clients, or from, providing free or kind of more accessible resources. I think it's personal finances that kind of affect that, and which is tough, and unfortunately, it is kind of a societal thing that needs to change.
Hmm.
But it seems like you're developing a great model for that, and I actually personally am in the process of trying to be credentialed with insurance companies, because I have found, since starting my own private practice, and I'm a very, very recent private practice owner, but I have been feeling that as a private pay clinician, I'm not as accessible, and I want to be
Hmm.
accessible to people.
Hmm.
So that's kind of what I'm working towards. But it seems like you have thought of just so many different ways to provide that accessibility to, I mean, to all of Canada. It's
Yeah, yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, I think the landscape medical support in Canada and US is different, but
Hmm.
I think that, we do have universal health care. However, there's still gaps and mental health isn't and therapy is generally not something that's covered in case, unless it's like an emergency or something
Hmm.
serious. And some provinces are just starting to look at, free therapy for many people. And,
Hmm.
we do have government programs, but it's very hard to qualify for those programs. There's huge
Hmm.
wait lists, and it's not an equal playing field for all people.
Hmm.
And there is so many variables, and it's not ever going to, we're not going to fix the whole issue. We're not going to fix the
Hmm.
societal issue that you're talking about, but we are trying to create a space that does fill those needs, that does fill those gaps, and do it in a way that everybody wins. But
Hmm.
yeah, we will see long term how that plays out. But there is so many variables, and I'm sure that a year from now, if you asked me, oh, what did you discover, I would have another list for you, right? So
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's a very complicated and complex landscape for sure. And
Hmm.
yeah, I'm just doing what I can.
Yeah, well, definitely feeling a need. And yeah, I will have you back a year from now and you can tell me and all of the listeners what you have learned from the experience and kind of, I mean, that would be actually really cool to do. I would be
Yeah,
excited about
amazing.
that.
I'm in. You can book me. I can't wait. I could be in tears, but I hope not. It's the slow and steady. And I actually talked to a therapist friend of mine yesterday. She said, "Oh, how's everything going?" And I said, "Well, it's good." I said, "Some days I wake up and think, what did I do? Why did I choose this path?" And she said, "You have doubt?" And I said, "Yes." Like, do you think I'm like superhuman? And she said, "No, but you usually like don't let things bother you, and you never show signs of worry or anxiety." And I said, "Well,
Mm-hmm.
I would think that it would be weird if I was thinking like this would be easy or fine, and I didn't have any self-doubt. That would be very strange." So, it's definitely not a smooth road, but I'm getting there, and
Yeah.
I try to focus on like the why, so that I
Hmm.
can just keep going. I can just, put one
Hmm.
foot in front of the other. But yeah, I can only
Hmm.
imagine what we'll be talking about in a year from
Yeah, I feel like therapists, I mean, all mental health professionals hopefully find that piece of having that accessibility in their practice or having
now.
that reaching populations or reaching different people that
Hmm. Hmm.
are in need of the
Yeah.
mental health support. And I mean, you're doing that on a big level. I feel like for me, that's my work with a cancer support nonprofit. What I'm trying to say is that I feel like each mental health professional, you need to find that passion, something that drives you, that is just you do it because you're passionate and it's worth it because of that. As you said, just reminding yourself of the why.
100%. Yeah. And I think you bring up something important too. It's like when you're in private practice, having like a giant full caseload of just doing that every day, I think is a challenge. And I think that, as a therapist, it's good to create like different spaces for yourself to work or to volunteer or to do different things. So you have that professional balance within what you're doing.
Hmm.
And I work part-time as a school counselor, and I love that because I love being face to face with kids. I love supporting the community that I'm in. But I only do that very part-time, and yeah, I feel very lucky to be able to do that. But it helps
Hmm.
keep me grounded as well. And then,
Hmm.
creating this company, yeah, it's like easy because it's what I want to do. And I know people say
Hmm.
that, and it's very cliche, it doesn't feel like work, and
Hmm.
I'm so driven and determined every day when I wake up. And the
Hmm.
only way that this company will grow and that will reach more people is if I do the work. And so I
Hmm.
just I just keep doing it. And
Yeah.
yeah, when you're
Amazing.
passionate, it's easy, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious if we can talk a little bit about how you approach clients in the therapy room. So let's say a client comes in. Do you initially bring culture or differences in privilege, power dynamics initially in your session? That's one question. And also, what do you do if you find that you have a bias towards a client?
Mhm. Yeah, these are great questions. And I think that there's no one answer. I think that I approach every situation very differently. Like, I don't go in with a script because,
Hmm.
of course, different people are at different places about their identities. They are able to articulate different things about their identities. They're able to, be thoughtful and mindful about how their identities affect their mental health or not. And I can't assume any of that. And so I think generally people want to know a little bit about me. They want to know a little bit about my history, and obviously I don't put myself in the space, but I am willing to say, do you have some questions about me and my background? And most times people want to know, right? And so I just tell them a little bit about my journey working and living overseas and,
Mm-hmm.
the different kinds of people that I've interacted with. I think through time and through building that therapeutic rapport with my clients, things come out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Understandings come out. For example, if I see something that I recognize, like that is part of a cultural norm, I might call it. I might say, "Oh, I noticed this. How do you think that impacts you?" And I'm just really open about it. I try not to be uncomfortable. And if I don't know something, I say it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think we all have bias. Always shows up in our sessions from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm very quick to recognize if I'm having a bias towards somebody. What I notice in my practice is that I'm very open with people from varied backgrounds, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes my bias shows up in the reverse. So say I have like a white client, my bias shows up in a reverse. And so I've
Mm-hmm.
started noticing that and reflecting on it, like what is that about? And because of my cultural identity, like as a Canadian, as my ethnic background, but then also my lived experience, as a living in other cultures for
Mm-hmm.
so many years. I don't know where I identify either. And so just like seeing the interplay of my experiences and how they impact the
Mm-hmm.
person in the space. But I think it's again, it comes back to that like being willing to be vulnerable without oversharing, but
Mm-hmm.
being willing to say, I don't know, being willing to check myself in that moment, take a breath, take a
Mm-hmm.
pause, notice if I start, judging or hearing something, and just taking a step back. But I think the biggest thing for me is that when I make a mistake or that stuff comes up, I forgive myself. I show self-compassion. I say, you know
Mm-hmm.
what, I'm a human. I am flawed. I cannot possibly be perfect in every moment, and I want to show that self-compassion as much as possible and let myself off the hook. And then,
Mm-hmm.
do the work, right? So, and it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. And certainly, I think assuming that I know everything is always going to be the problem. Assuming that
Yeah.
I don't know is always going to be the win. And so also forgiving myself when I don't know. I think that's hard for us to do because we want
Mm-hmm.
to have the right answer and we want to do it right and we want to be the best for our clients, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately we're just people too. So
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. That is so, so important. Just for everyone to be aware of that therapists are not, we're not these all-knowing beings, these experts who have perfect lives. I mean, we really are humans as well, and we're still trying to figure things out like everyone else.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah. And I think clients appreciate like that, I think there's some clients that want us to be perfect, but I
mhm,
think for the most part, my experience is different. I think that they want to know that we're just humans too. They want to feel
mhm,
safe in that
yeah,
space. I mean, obviously we have the education and we have the experience and we have our reflective practices and our ethical guidelines and all of those things, but we can
mhm,
still, be flawed and be human and be imperfect and just be ourselves. It's so tricky to get that vulnerability piece right without that
mhm,
oversharing. But I think, people know when you're not being honest or you're not being authentic, right?
yeah,
And it creates that incongruence that is just so obvious, right? And we want it to just be as honest and normal as possible. I think
mhm,
any of my clients would probably tell you, yep, no, she's exactly the same on the
yeah,
podcast as she is in our sessions, right? And I can say the same about, the people on my team. I'm no different in any other space, and I think my professional life has been varied, but it's taught me to just be myself, and that's
mhm,
okay. It's
yeah,
enough no matter what, and no matter what setting what we're in. And I think if I can be the example
mhm,
of that for my clients, they're
right,
going to rise to that.
yeah. So, for any therapist listening or just anyone else who wants to do the work, do you have any specific recommendations for books, for podcasts, for any material that people could look into? And if you can't think of anything off the top of your head, then you can let me know and I'll put it in the episode details. But just anything off the top of your head that you can think of for anyone to look into.
Yeah, I send you a list after, but
Yep.
yeah, I think Google is our friend, right? Like
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be that complicated, right? Like Google can be
Right.
your friend, right? And I mean, there's such an amazing wealth of knowledge right at your fingertips. When you don't know
Mhm.
about a term or you don't know what somebody asked you, just Google it, you know? And
Mhm.
because I
Yeah.
do online therapy, you know, sometimes I'm like, I don't know what that word is, and I, you know, quietly type on my computer screen and I look it up, right? And I mean, and I'm, oh yeah, okay, I know what that word means now. And
Right.
it can be that simple. It's not, it doesn't have
Mhm.
to be a complicated process. And I think, yeah, the internet is our friend. So,
Right.
but I
It's
will
true.
send you some materials and some good books that I've read over the year. Yeah.
Perfect. Great. Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much. So before we wrap up for today, anything else that you would like our listeners to know or any kind of final thoughts?
Yeah. I think final thoughts, just based on all of our conversation, is like, you know, being a culturally sensitive and having cultural humility in your practice, you know, it doesn't have to be hard. Um,
Hmm.
you know, I use this expression sometimes, but like put down the stick, you know, the one that we used to like beat ourselves up with. Just let yourself off the hook, you know, and be graceful to yourself, be gracious and be kind to yourself and just know that it's a journey, right? And some of us are further along on the journey, but the further along I get on the journey, I realize that like there's still so much more left, right? And so I think
Hmm.
just knowing that you're not alone and that we're all on that journey together and that you can be kind to yourself, you know, and it's
Hmm.
okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today and being on this podcast. And I think that the words that you shared and what we talked about today, I think it really will make a difference to whoever is listening. And thank you so, so much for that.
You're very welcome, Jordan. It was so
Yeah.
great to meet you and be on your show.
So, Maureen, if anyone listening wants to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can go to Help Clinics, HELP clinic.ca, and you'll find Help Clinic Canada. And if you want to get in touch with me, there's contact details on there.
Great. And I will put your website in the episode notes as well. Thank you so much.
Amazing.
Thank you for listening to Just Therapist Things, where we talk all things therapy. I'll talk to you soon.